Hello, my name is Jimena and I'm going to show you how to create a building using procedural modeling, then how to prepare for destroy the building, and finally destroy the building. We have done this under the mentorship of my Houdini teacher, Jesper Ralph in Vanarts. Let's start with Houdini. I will show you first how the building looks at the end. It's a 12-story building I created with, that's the building that I'm going to show you. And this is the original floor map, floor plan that we use to fit the system to create this procedural building. The cool stuff about Houdini is that you can fit as much as different floor plans and you can create different buildings with the same system that we created today. We start with a COP network that is a node that allows us to import images from other programs and manipulate them, color correct them, invert them, scale them, and get them ready to start modeling with the other tools that we have with Houdini. Then we started with a simple box to outline the overall measurements of the first floor that we're going to work. And we're going to use a trace node to extract the image, to use the image to extract primitives out of the image that we prepared previously. So the walls, the ceiling, and the floor of the building are based on that image that I showed you previously. As you can notice, the trace node is a node dependent on time. So after use it, we need to add a time shift node to frame hold the image that we need to continue working with. In this tree, you see in the left side how we extracted the walls and matched them size with the overall box with the measurements. And the method that we use to decide which primitive is going to be used for floor and ceiling and then the walls is to compare the area of the different primitives that the trace node provide us. So we created a attribute VOP to compare the areas of the different primitives, and we decided to keep the biggest area and use it as the floor and ceiling. And after that, later I will show you how we place the ceiling in the correct place that is going to be in the top of the walls. So once we decided which part is going to be the floor, we proceed to the other primitive that is the perimeter of the walls and inside walls to extrude them and create the walls of the floor. We decide that height accordingly to the reference box that we started at the beginning. And once we have the height of the walls, we need to clean up a little bit the map because sometimes it has little walls or angles in the corners, and we created a system that allows us to dismiss the edges that we don't want to use as walls, comparing the minimum length and the angle that is between them. We are trying to keep all the angles and edges that are 90 degrees from one to the other. Then we create the windows because it would be very claustrophobic to be laid like this. So what do we use to create the windows? Also the perimeter of the image. We created lines, converted lines that we can later resample and carve to determine the width of the walls. And then we use the enumerate node to create an index that allows us to duplicate that lane and use it as reference to transform it and put it above or below and decide the height of the windows. So after that, let me show you how it looks. That this is where we refine the line to create. We decided with this in this system, we also decided which walls are going to have windows. If the wall is very short, it's not worth it to have a window. So in this attribute VOP, we create a little system that compare and multiply the percentage of the walls that the length of the wall that we want to have and what percentage of that wall is going to be a window. And then we continue to the resample of the lines and index them with the enumerate to then merge them and have the reference lines to create polygons that are allowing me to do the boxes or shapes that are going to help us to do the boolean and make the holes where the windows are going to be. So we are creating here that reference lines to create the geometry that is gonna help us to then extract the piece of the walls where the windows are going to be. Okay. Here you can see the windows already, and we used like a trick that the teacher told us to use the alpha for the viewport, so we can differentiate the windows, and we also use the split and connectivity nodes to create the frames of the windows. So when we separate the different edges, we can create again and decide which one are going to be together and cup them to create these. Let me show you these frames, these insets. Right. Okay. Let's see all together. Yeah, you see. Then we decided to create a patio for those open areas. It's going to be more cozy building, and we use a similar system that we use for create a floor. We compare the areas of the empty spaces and keep the largest primitive that is open and reverse it to polyextrude and create another floor for the terrace. So then we use the pick. When we were creating the walls, I forgot that we faced contrary problem that not all the walls were facing the same way. So previously we had to create a little loop here to identify the normals of the windows and then assign them. Let me show you. Assign them a centroid point to create a normal with this point and compare the normal to one point in the center of on the floor, so we can flip around the ones that were facing the opposite side. So it's good because every floor plan could have different walls that are looking on the opposite side. So once we flip them, we create the shapes to boolean the walls over here, I think. Yes. And you can have now the spaces where the windows are going to be. Okay. Okay, let's go back to the patio. we created another floor on the open space, and then we create a fancy rail to hands, and we did that using a tube, merging and placing the tube along another line that we created along the open space. Okay, once we merge that, we have the patio and that open space, and we're ready to place it with the building. Just in this way, we have the first floor ready, and once we have that, we can use the copy node to create as many floors as we want. Okay, here's our building. Okay, this is the procedural model of the building, and then we need to prepare that structure to be destroyed. How? Because you know that every material cracks in a different way, so we decided that the floor is going to be wood, the ceiling and the walls are going to be concrete, and the windows are going to be glass. According to that, we group those pieces according to the material and create a system that shows how every group of materials is going to break in a different way. In this case, I use a Voronoi fracture for concrete, and another modified Voronoi fracture with transformation to simulate the cracking of the woods. And we use the RBD material fracture to crash the windows using, and notice that the RBD material fracture has inside here in the material type, you can choose between the different materials. I only use it for the glass because it's a heavy tool and it's going to take a lot of time to configure it for every material here. So I was happy with the Voronoi fracture for the concrete and for the wood. Then we establish the different constraints that is going to, and the forces that are going to be affecting the support of the building, and use the convex hull to avoid the extra calculation for the system about the concave and the pieces that are concave and are going to be affecting a little bit the performance of the simulation. Here in this loop is explained how to compare the original volume versus the convex hull of that piece, and those that have a very big convex hull are going to be pre-fractured before the simulation and keep the same name so they don't break at the end. We use the for each loop and pack and unpacking in different stances of the procedure. Once we have this, we are ready to destroy the building using top network, where we apply some forces. In this case, I'm gonna use a sphere with speed and mass that is going to hit the building and simulate the destructions according to the previous constraints and materials setup that we established. So we click play here. We have to provide the constraints network, our building here, the object that is gonna do the collision, merge them, and then use the real body solver to simulate the fracture. Let's play it. So here is the summary. This should be a shorter video, but I'll try to cover as much as I can. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let me know. Thank you. Bye.